Fine, the webinar is now being recorded, and it will be available to be listened to on insidehousing.co.uk next week. Okay, I think that's pretty much everything we need to discuss just now. I'm going to hand over now to our first speaker, who is Sarah Paling from Ocean Media Group. Okay, Sarah, I'll just pass this over to you.
Good morning. Thank you everybody for joining us. My name's Sarah Paling. I'm just hoping my slides will start in a moment, but I am the event director for all of the housing events at Ocean Media Group. We, for anybody that isn't aware, Ocean Media Group owns and runs all the main large events in the housing sector, including the event that we're all here to talk about today, the CIH Housing Conference and Exhibition, which is the largest gathering of housing professionals in Europe. We think probably the world, but we can't say that definitely, but we know in Europe. We also own Homes 2015, which takes place in London in November and convenes 3,000 asset management and development professionals in housing. The social housing conferences that we run in May and November, which target and attract the most senior delegates in the sector, bringing together over 500 chief executives and finance directors in housing, plus the funders and professional services associated with those people. And we also own the 3 main award ceremonies, including the UK Housing Awards, Housing Heroes Awards, and our new Top 60 Development Awards, which is a rebrand of our original Sustainable Housing Awards. We also organise up to 20 bespoke events each year, working alongside individual clients, and these include high-level roundtables, policy briefings, and networking events. These generally partner with either of our sister titles, Inside Housing or Social Housing magazine. But back to the event we are here to discuss today. CIH Housing, and it's important to remember when I talk about CIH Housing Conference and Exhibition, I'm also talking about PFH Live, which is a event that runs within CIH Housing, focusing on procurement. So all of the stats and information I have today will be relevant to any PFH Live clients, as they have exactly the same entitlements and media support as the CIH clients. The slide that's just come up give you 10 of our unique selling points, unique to our event. I'm going to do some of the latter points later on in the presentation, but some things just to remember when you're planning your exhibition activity is 70% of our 5,205 delegates last year were involved in the purchasing of products and services. So we have a high level of decision makers and influencers that come to Manchester. There's 3 days of interactive conference sessions with over 200 speakers, including the conference programme, the Ideas Exchange, free seminars, PFH Live seminar programme, and the new Fringe. We have over 300 exhibitors and over 50 sponsors at the event. To give it a truly national feel, we're delighted to say all of the G15 attended in 2014, and the delegate demographic reflects the UK registered provider and local authority breakdown as it should. The event this year takes place 6 weeks and 5 days after the general election, meaning it will be the first main gathering of housing professionals to discuss the new government and also the opportunity to hear from the Housing Minister on their initial thoughts, concerns and key drivers for us. And finally, the event begins with the Housing Heroes Awards on the Monday night. This brings together over 750 people to really celebrate all the great work the sector does through its individuals and teams. And importantly for you as an exhibitor, guarantees a large group of visitors on site to attend the event from 9 AM on the Tuesday morning. Just to set the scene on the actual programme and what we hope to discuss at Manchester this year, we work out what we're going to speak about through a very collaborative approach with the sector. We engage with many key stakeholders, both within housing and external to housing through government. But we also convene a panel of 50 people who work with us and they include developers, registered providers, local authorities, journalists, consultants, and obviously our team at Ocean Media with the Chartered Institute of Housing. It was agreed for the first time in 4 years that we weren't going to start Manchester with a big economic outlook. I think we're all aware of the impact that the economy has had on our sector over the last three years, and so what we're actually looking at to start Manchester off is a session on the new political reality chaired by Rita Chakrabarti from the BBC. Speakers for this session already include Tim Montgomery, who's the founder and editor of Conservative Home, Miranda Green, journalist and former Liberal Democrat advisor, and Mehdi Hassan, political director at the Huffington Post. And then we go into some other topics such as big data, unlocking global growth through affordable housing, is the UK on course for a breakup, what impact for housing, is housing a model of good governance, the changing labour market and the new insecurities, future economic trends and their impact on the housing market, and adapting to the changing demographics. With your exhibition stand or sponsorship package, you receive up to 2 conference session passes, and it's really important that you use these and go to meet the delegates in the sessions that are relevant to you. And when you are suggesting speakers to us, please remember that our conference has over 50% of speakers not involved in housing, and we look at high-level political and strategic topics in the main programme. We do, however, have a full programme of free seminars that are more practical and get great audiences too. And now to the exciting bits that we're adding on to Manchester in 2015. When we moved Harrogate to Manchester in 2012, the team behind the move planned for every single eventuality to ensure all our delegates and visitors who loved their Harrogate week felt as much like we were still in a cosy resort exclusive to housing delegates while celebrating all that Manchester had to offer as a city and venue. For 2015, for the first time, we think our delegates and visitors now know the event and are very, very comfortable with Manchester as a city and a host city for our housing conference. So we really believe this was the year to add in some new bits to really help the exhibition and conference, and also to make sure your time there and your money invested was wisely spent. The first is the launch of an official fringe in partnership with the Wheatley Group. The fringe will be based in the main exhibition hall, but will move around the event, constantly challenging views and perceptions. The scope for this is really exciting, and we are consulting with the sector on tenant engagement, equality, diversity, youth, training, apprenticeships and social values. And with the partnership of Inside Housing and Social Housing magazine, we plan to make some real noise both before, during and after the event. For any of these new bits, or for any bits that you want to get involved in, please do just email me after and I'll put you in touch with the right member of the team. The second is we're launching a conference within a conference on health, housing and social care. There is a significant and growing body of evidence which links poor quality housing, negative health effects and health inequalities. Impacts of poor housing on health and well-being include respiratory problems, excess winter deaths, mental health problems and cardiovascular problems. And you will have seen this in the news constantly at the moment. While housing quality and social housing has improved over the last 10 years, in 2008 only 56% of private housing was considered decent, and I wouldn't expect this stat to have moved on much from there. As an exhibitor, it's really important that you're aware of this event, as you will also benefit from these additional delegates without having to invest in a separate event to target them. And finally, we are also launching our Delegate of the Future programme. Our sector has changed, and the leaders of today will not reflect the leadership in years to come. To ensure any new leaders are engaged with housing policy on a national level, we are inviting up to 1,000 manager-level individuals to come to the conference as full delegates on the Thursday, entirely free of charge. This scheme, we are delighted to say, is being championed by Affinity Sutton, Orbit, Wheatley Group, Stockport Homes and the Wheatley Group. I've said the Wheatley Group twice there, so that means I've obviously forgotten somebody off, sorry. As an exhibitor, this means 1,000 new attendees who will be walking around the exhibition on the final day. So that is all from me, but do let me know if you have any questions or if we can help you out with anything that you're doing at our event. We are really here to help as a team, and all I ask is that when you look at Manchester, please do plan your time with us. Ask us any questions, ask for any of our help. Look at how you can enhance your time there through advertising, sponsorship, data collection options available to you, and whatever we can do to make it a success will be done for you. Thank you.
Okay, Sarah, thank you very much. Okay, we're now going to hear from Martin Hilditch, the Deputy Editor of Inside Housing. Martin, over to you.
Thanks very much, Stuart. Right, I've been given the brief to talk about two key things really today. One is the key topics at Housing 2015, as we see it on Inside Housing's editorial side, and the second one is how to get into Inside Housing. So those are the two main things I'm going to be talking about today. Here we go, and we're up and running with the slides as well. Right, so we'll just start off with who we are, basically. So this is us, a selection of some of the high-profile stories we've been covering in some of the supplements we've put out over the last year. Inside Housing's daily news, features, comment and analysis online, including a roundup of breaking stories from Inside Housing and beyond on our live blog. The magazine contains in-depth analysis, data and the biggest stories of the week. So that's us in a nutshell. Now, in terms of Housing 2015, what do we think delegates are going to be talking about immediately after the election? There's going to be a number of main topics that are going to dominate the conference, and we've been through an editorial process at the start of this year to think about what we're going to be covering in the magazine as well. So these two things dovetail really. So I'll just run through the list. House building is going to dominate discussion in the run-up to the general election, and we're going to be wanting to know exactly how parties are going to deliver on their pledges at Housing 2015. So that really is going to be a dominant theme of the entire year, I think, from before the election through to the conference. Technology up there, that's another big running theme for us. How can housing providers deliver their services better, more cheaply, and improve on tenant satisfaction? What technology is out there to help them do that, and how can they learn from reading Inside Housing and talking to you? Value for money, huge theme for the year. We're just about to find out what the Homes and Communities Agency's regulation panel's view of landlords' value for money statements are. It's going to be a theme that government is going to want to talk about of all colours, both during the campaign and after the election. How are you delivering on value for money as a sector? And this ties into the next one, regulation. Again, the view of the regulator of how you're performing is going to be absolutely key going forward, and certainly going to be leading discussions at Housing 2015. Welfare and welfare reform, huge topic. Difficult to get away from. Whichever party gets in, or whatever combination of parties get in May, the welfare reform is not going to go away. It is going to continue. It is going to affect people's businesses, both for the remainder of the year and going forward. So really key for us to be talking about that and working out what that means for the sector at the conference. Devolution we'll come back to in a minute, but both in terms of nationally and regionally. I mean, who's going to be the next Manchester likely to be there? One of the topics for conversation. So a good place to be having it. Planning, again, really big theme. Not going to disappear after the election. Are we delivering the right numbers? Is the planning system stopping us from doing so? How do we expedite things? And the perception of social housing, again, a huge issue in terms of what the parties are going to be talking about in the run-up to the election, what the broadcasters are going to be talking about, and actually what the public think about social housing, who lives in it, and the providers themselves. So that's, in a nutshell, the key topics for the conference. And so some asides, really, if you're wanting to get in on the gossip at the conference. Will the Housing Minister regain an ability to attend cabinets? We're running odds of 10 to 1 on that in a minute. Will housing be taken out of DCLG, where it currently sits, and be placed in another department, for example, a DOH? 15 to 1 on that, any takers. And the end of the bedroom tax, depending on who gets in, offering generous odds of 5 to 1 on that. And we haven't yet worked out what our odds are on Conservative UKIP coalition and what that would mean for the housing sector. But watch this space. Right. So the other thing in terms of the gossip and the debate at the conference is the questions to the new government after the general election. So again, whatever colour the government happens to be, whatever they're leaning, these are the kind of questions delegates are going to be asking. So plans for house building. Is there going to be an increased focus on build numbers? Everybody's talking about building more homes. Are people actually going to put their money where their mouth is and truly deliver? Or actually are we going to see a continued reliance on welfare and the kind of strains that brings, which leads us on to the next topic, the future of welfare reform. Is it going to be full steam ahead with universal credit and some of the plans we've heard this week about reducing the welfare cap, etc. Or is there going to be a new course? Is there going to be a different government that's going to be taking a different approach to welfare? Are things going to slow down dramatically, and what impact is that going to have on people's businesses? As mentioned, devolution, really big question, just in terms of what that means, who gets more power, what powers people get, and what that means for your businesses. And again, we've already touched on perception of social landlords. Are they seen by government as key partners or a problem to be dealt with? Really key for the sector to be thinking about how it's positioning itself for the next government and going into the election on that. And certainly interesting to talk to the new housing minister and the new government about what they see the sector as the future as being. Right. So that's the conference. How do you get into inside housing in advance of the conference, and indeed right now if you want to. In terms of your pitches, be concise. When you get in touch with us, let us know exactly what you want to talk about and why. Don't make it woolly. Make it direct and easy to understand, so we actually understand why you're talking to us and what message you want to get across. Pitch to the right person. We'll come back to this later. But there's a range of reporters on the news desk and a features editor and a news editor. Rather than pitching to say me, you probably want to be targeting the right person on the news desk for the best chance of success. Get your timing right. This is another really important thing to be thinking about. Give advance notice of any events you want the feature section to cover, for example. We're thinking 3 months in advance in the feature section and commissioning about 6 weeks out. So that's the kind of timescales you want to be working to on features. And as part of that, you want to be thinking about any case studies you can suggest for features as well, because they tend to take the most time to set up. Big don't send us pictures like this. There's Princess Anne hiding somewhere in that picture. We get numerous items like this, and we'll get a staggering amount in the run-up to Manchester 2015, a lot of which will immediately be binned because they don't tell the story. So really think about what you're trying to achieve with your pictures. Timing your pitch. So this is a bit more directed at Manchester 2015. Again, we're working a month ahead of publication in terms of actually delivering those features. So you really want to be pitching the ideas at the start of May for those Manchester editions. If you go any later than that, you don't really stand much chance of getting a feature in Inside Housing for that edition. You may get something online, but again, we're thinking about our coverage a month or so in advance. So there's not much room for manoeuvre. The entire reporting team will be at the conference, so let them know what you're launching and when in advance. The team will be incredibly busy during that week. They'll be running in and out of sessions, getting stuff up online and planning the magazine. If you're dropping a line on Monday or Tuesday at the CIH conference, it becomes much more difficult to get coverage. So again, really think about what you're doing in advance and get in touch with the team in advance. And comment pieces likewise, there'll be a plethora of comments coming through in the run-up to the conference. Pitch in advance and book your slot. And this is a bit of a run-through of the feature section for the year. We plan various different specials and supplements over the course of the year. When it comes to Manchester, for example, we've got the construction and development special for a start. So we're going to be looking for construction and development themed features and comment pieces in the run-up to that second edition for the conference. And just a quick run through various different geographical, southwest special, fire and gas safety, safer communities. Just have a look at the list and think about when you're going to pitch. Right, and finally to round off, just as mentioned, call the right person. I mean, this is a list of contact details for all of us on Inside Housing. But if you're pitching stories or features, Jess McCabe, who's our features editor, is the key contact there. So you want to be thinking about pitching to her and what you're going to be saying to her. And then in terms of the news team, really, you've got Carl, who's the news editor, and Pete, Heather and Dan, who are our reporters. Pete is our business reporter, so any finance ideas you probably want to be pitching to him. And then Carl for anything that's coming through the news desk we'll be dealing with. So pitch to the right person, it increases your chances of success. Effectively, if you pitch to me or Emma, say, for a news idea, we'll really be repitching it to the news desk. That's kind of how it works. So just think about who you're pitching to and run up to. Right, I think that pretty much rounds off what I wanted to say, so I will pass back to Stuart. Thank you very much.
Okay, Martin, thank you very much for that. Okay, we're now going to hear from Tim Fryer and Vicky Darg at Places for People on how to create the perfect stand at Manchester 2015, or any other event in fact. But, yeah, Tim and Vicky, over to you.
Thank you, Stuart. Morning, everyone. I'm Tim Fryer, Head of Corporate Marketing at Places for People. Also joined today by my colleague Vicky Dargu, who's Customer Relations Manager at Places for People. Vicky's going to take you through some of the detail around planning. There's two parts to today's presentation that we've been asked to give you an overview of. One of which is what makes a successful stand, and a bit about what to do pre, during and post-event. Stuart, I'm not able to move the slides on, so I don't know if anyone's able to do it for me, if I can't click through them.
Okay, I'll do that for you, that's fine.
Great, thank you. I'll just carry on while Stuart's doing that. So, Places for People exhibited at the CIH conference last year. It's the first time we've been there for a number of years. It was a successful event for the group, so we'll be back again this year, and culminated in us winning the Best Use of Technology Award. So, the idea today is to kind of share some insights from our experience last year and give you a few pointers about planning if you're exhibiting at this year's event. I think, you know, from my perspective, one of the key things in order to be successful is thinking about why are you exhibiting. I think it all comes back to this question, really. Why are you exhibiting at the event? What do you want to get out of it? And thinking now about how you'll look back in July and think, you know, and know whether it's been a successful event or not. I'm sure you'll all, you know, a lot of investment time goes into planning and exhibiting at the conference, and you'll want to be able to assess that following the conference to see whether it was of value to your organisation, whether, you know, you got a return on it, whether you met your objectives. So I think, you know, all of your decisions throughout the process from now until post-event really need to come back to why, you know, and use those to inform your decisions. So, you know, it's something really, I guess, if you've already committed to exhibiting there, you've probably, you know, already considered why you want to be there already. Okay, so just going into a bit more detail really about, you know, kind of pondering on this really. So thinking about what you want to achieve from the event, the number of things, and just picked out a few of them because I think it does dictate your communications pre and post event. Your stand design, you know, how you're going to try and generate people to your stand. So some of the key things you might want to consider are, you know, are you going there to raise awareness of, you know, your organisation within the sector? If so, you know, how are you going to get footfall to your stand? Is it about lead generation? You know, is there a product or service you're trying to sell to other associations? If so, think about how you'll attract the right people to your stand. There's a lot of people attend the conference. There might be a select few that you want to get there, so I think it's worth considering how you'll reach out to that specific audience. Also, sales. You know, if there's something that you're trying to sell and actually complete a deal on the stand, you know, you need to think about how you'll design your stand to ensure it's conducive to sales. You know, do you need some seating? Does there need to be some privacy? Do you actually need some space off off-site where you can direct people for kind of more detailed discussions and negotiations? Or is it around engagement? You know, do you want to get opinions from leaders within the sector about a particular campaign that you're carrying out? So if so, you know, what's your hook to attract people to your stand? How are you going to get people there? I think that's a key challenge at the event. The right people are there, but you want to make sure that you stand out above the crowd. So we'll come on to that a bit later on. But in terms of planning your event strategy, again, I think it's about tailoring all of your activities to deliver your objectives. I think you need to keep going back to your reason for exhibiting and making sure that is informing all of your decisions for the event. So develop your key messages, you know, and stick to them. However, whichever channels you're using to communicate, whether it's to, you know, internal or external audiences, I think if you've developed your key messages and you know why you're at the event and what your objectives are, and then it's far easier to get those out there and be consistent. Think about your target audience. You know, as I mentioned before, are there specific people there in specific positions or in specific organisations that you want to target? How will you reach them, and then how will you attract them to your stand? And finally, what's the best use of your budget? You know, I think you can exhibit at the conference for several £1,000s to several £100,000 if you're looking at some of the kind of bigger exhibitors, and it's just trying to think of at each stage what is the best use of your budget and assessing that against other uses of your budget to try and make sure that you do stand out from the crowd. Okay, so, you know, mentioned before, there's lots of exhibitors. I think most of you have probably attended the conference previously. There's a lot going on, both in terms of the conference itself and in the exhibition hall. So you need to think about how you can try and stand out from the crowd, you know. And I think, you know, by being creative, I think there are lots of ways that you can do this. You know, there's lots of stands there that, you know, maybe don't use the stand space as well as they could do. So it's trying to think about, within your budget, what can you do to be slightly different, catch the eye. You know, if someone is walking around that hall, how are you going to get them to come to your stand when they've walked past 10 others? You know, and for those of you who saw the Places for People stand last year, we had, along one wall of the stand was a 24-metre square video wall. So we used that for a lot of our key messaging. We produced videos, animations, we had a live Twitter feed on there, and we had scrolling updates that we were able to update throughout the event, so we could promote, you know, for example, when our chief executive was giving a keynote presentation, we could direct people there. We even had a live video stream of that presentation on our stand for those who weren't in the conference itself. So it's just trying to think of how you can engage the audience and so that you're, I suppose, putting across your key messages and making people who maybe would have otherwise walked past your stand to catch their eye and hopefully engage with you at the event. In terms of getting the right people to the stand, it's about using your existing contacts. You know, invite them to the stand before you're there. Make sure you know that they're there. Make appointments for them to meet your CEO, other senior staff in advance of the show, so you know that you've got an audience and you will be getting the people that you want to your stand. Also, maximising your existing communications channels. You know, I think it's about starting early and getting the message out there that you're going to be there. You know, people who tend to plan quite far in advance, booking their tickets, etc. So, you know, use your website, use your social media channels, use your corporate e-newsletters, however you communicate now, use those. And also think about whether, you know, there are other channels that you should be using specifically to communicate about the conference. Tell your employees as well. You know, a lot of your employees will obviously have contacts within the sector and can share it through their own personal social media accounts as well. And think about other opportunities at the event. It's not just about your stand. There's lots of sponsorship opportunities. You can pitch speaking opportunities. There's drinks receptions, breakfast briefings. and lots of fringe events as well. So it's worth thinking about the whole scope of activities and how those can support you to meet your objectives. And finally for me, just about driving footfall to your stand, publicise your stand before and after, let people know what's happening. If you've got specific activities, events, presentations on your stand, then let people know about that in advance. Make sure you've got marketing materials ready. You might want some printed handouts, you might want to email something out post-event, so it's worth considering how you're going to do this now, because in terms of the data that you may want to capture on your stand, and about your call to action, again, going back to your objectives, what do you want people to do after the event? Are you going to follow it up? Do you expect your attendees to follow it up? And to try and stand out, have a hook to get people to your stand. A few things that worked well for us last year was the interactive wall, particularly the Twitter feed. We had a dedicated PFP CIH Twitter account, so we could update this with real-time updates. It was engaging, interactive with participants, delegates at the conference, and a bit of fun as well, So I think that kind of added to it, and people engaged with us in that way, whether it was through the what we called our Wonder Wall, or whether it was in person on the stand. Other things that worked well in driving traffic to the stand, competitions, activities were great. We had some Zumba sessions that generated a bit of a buzz at the conference last year. Our Places for People Leisure manages about over 100 leisure centres throughout the country, and some of our leisure team actually did some kind of exercise classes on the stand, which attracted a big audience. And presentations as well, if you've got the technology there on the stand to do it. We used comedian David Schneider to talk about the use of comedy in learning to promote our e-learning product. So just think about how you can do things slightly differently to attract an audience to your stand and stand out from others. Okay, I think I've hopefully rattled through and given you a few kind of tips and food for thought. Now I'm going to hand over to Vicky Dargue, who will talk through the kind of planning of the event.
Okay, hi everyone. As Tim said, I think it is all in the planning. I think initially this is the first time that we've done this in a number of years, and you get your exhibition, your exhibitor pack, and you think, oh my goodness, where do I start? But actually, that exhibitor pack has everything that you need. It has everything about health and safety, risk assessments, insurance documents, and all of that kind of thing. But the first thing you need to do is decide on whether you're going to have a space only or a shelf scheme. We took the space only because we wanted to make sure that we used that space as effectively as we possibly could. And then the next step is to get a really, really good stand builder. Design it in the best way. If you are kind of focusing on sales, make sure that you have that seating area correct. And things like catering and refreshments, use Manchester Central. It's much easier than trying to do anything. You can plan it in advance so you know exactly what you're going to get, when and where. They're a fantastic crowd there. They kind of brought everything on time. There was no issues with that. And the other big thing for us, we wanted to know who was coming to our stand, so we used the scanners that kind of the CIH organisers can give you. We had 2, which was enough for us. I would recommend having more than one, because obviously, depending on the footfall to the stand, then you don't want to be kind of taking a scanner from one of your colleagues to scan somebody else. But that information that we got after that time was really, really useful for us, and let us kind of go back to those that had visited our stand and follow up those leads. The other thing that I would say is think about kind of using your free visitor passes and your free conference passes. We used them quite effectively, and we had a lot of people that we wanted to meet with throughout that 3 days kind of come and see us using visitor passes, and we had also obviously the free conference passes as well, which was invaluable for some of our senior staff to go in and listen to the conference sessions. Another thing that's not actually on the slides here is your accommodation. It's something that you actually don't think about, but you need to book it well in advance. There's lots of hotels, obviously, in Manchester. That's why it's such a fantastic place to have this event. But do book it in advance of that. during the event, I think when we first went in, the space is so vast and everybody's trying to get their stands built and everything. I mean, we went up the day before, obviously, to build our stand, but give yourself enough time. We kind of didn't finish ours until very, very late on the Monday night, which was a little bit stressful at times, but we managed to get there. So just give yourself enough time. And test everything. As Tim said, we had a huge, massive video wall on there, and we needed to make sure that worked. But obviously the facilities in Manchester Central with kind of internet connection, we had a hardwire connection to the stand, that worked absolutely brilliantly. One of the things we did, and probably one of the lessons learned for this time, is we had all of our marketing materials delivered at the same time as our stand was being built. That wasn't great, so what I would suggest is that you actually have your marketing materials delivered after the stand's actually complete, and then you can put them away and depending on where you're going to store them on the stand. We had storage space at the back of our stand, which again was invaluable because people come to your stand and they've got coats and bags and everything, and what you don't want is for them to be actually on the stand. So if you are having some, building designing your own stand, make sure that you have that storage space to think about. We had a project manager, which was myself, that could kind of oversee all of the elements of the stand. So that was a stand build. We had kind of a running order of what was going on when, who was coming in terms of support on the stand, and that was really good because you had that one person that kind of overseeing everything that everybody could go to. So I would suggest you have that. If you are having a stand there, and capture the moments. I think you're busy meeting and greeting and sorting everything out, but you kind of need to have that photography. We had a film crew there as well who took some video footage that we could then use afterwards as well, which was really, really effective for us. And obviously we had our video wall, so a lot of the things were kind of going on the wall and we were updating, and it also linked to our website as well, so all of our messages on our website was kind of all together really, which was good. Post event, I would say kind of gather the detail from the scanners. We've used a lot of the leads that we got from the exhibition afterwards, and that was kind of invaluable for us. We kept everything up to date, and even after, just because you kind of do the de-rig and your stand goes away, it doesn't end there. We wanted to know exactly what we'd actually gotten from the event, assess the outcome, was it worth doing, what did you get out of it, and what we're doing now is obviously we're exhibiting again, so it was worth it for us, and we're now using all of our lessons learned to make sure that we're actually learning from what we did last year and planning it into what we're doing this year. I think that's probably all I've kind of got to say on the stand build. But we started our planning in January of last year, which seemed like we had an awful long time, but it does take some time to pull together. But use your exhibitor pack; it's got everything in there that you need. Thank you.
Okay, Vicky and Tim, thank you both very much for that. I'll just crack quickly on with the last presentation, which is from me on LinkedIn and how this can really help you make the most of your time at Manchester 2015 and indeed other events you might be at. Very briefly, why I'm talking on this. I was a journalist for 13 years, so I now run my own communications company, and LinkedIn has been valuable and very valuable actually in both bits of my career, and it's really helped me to make and develop contacts and crucially to win some work, which is always nice. Okay, what we're going to cover just now, really why you should make LinkedIn part of your working day, what makes a good business profile on LinkedIn, posting on LinkedIn and joining groups, how to make the most of your network. We've heard a bit of that already from Tim and Vicky actually, and I've got some 10 LinkedIn tips that you can take away at the end as well. Just quickly some stats on LinkedIn. see, when I did these slides a couple of weeks ago, there were at that point more than 300 million people using LinkedIn. It will obviously be a lot more than that now. It's a network for professionals, which is important to remember. And of these professionals, LinkedIn's aiming for 3 billion global users. And currently it's got people using LinkedIn in more than 200 countries. And of the people who are on LinkedIn, of the 300 million people that are using it, 40% of these people are using it on a daily basis. And 48% of users spend more than 2 hours a week on LinkedIn. So there's a great opportunity to be getting yourself and your business in front of them. Just in the time we're here today, very quickly you can see some stats here about how many people will be joining LinkedIn, the activity that will be on there. So I've put at the bottom there that all these interactions, almost 3% will result in business, and by comparison, Twitter, less than 1%. You can see the value there. Another quick stat as well, just as far as the UK housing sector is concerned, there are 60 million LinkedIn users in the UK, as you can see there, just under 2.5 million in London. IT, maybe unsurprisingly, the biggest sector in LinkedIn in the UK, but then you've got UK construction just behind that, 420,000 users, and then financial services comes next. So, our sector is well represented on LinkedIn. Now, when you think about adding something else to your working day, this may be the feeling that you get. I don't know. It certainly was sort of the case for me when I was editor of Inside Housing. But hopefully, just some of the stats we've looked at demonstrate that here's why it's worthwhile. Thinking about getting LinkedIn into your day. So how do you fit it in then? Well, the thing I would say is that just how I use LinkedIn, I would be on there in the morning, probably for about maybe up to 15 minutes, just seeing, just picking up an update, what people have been doing on my network. Just help you get email alerts through LinkedIn that you'll all be aware of if you have a profile already. I'll talk a wee bit about how you can get the most out of them. And I'll just, make sure I spend, I'd say, on average day, about 15-20 minutes on there, sometime in the morning, sometime in the end of the day as well. I would say, just in terms of your profiles, I'm not got it on here, but it's hopefully pretty useful to have a good professional photograph of yourself on there. Listing your skills gives you more profile views. Increasingly, you'll find that people will be giving you endorsements for skills through LinkedIn. LinkedIn very much encourages that. Recommendations are very useful and valid way of just demonstrating to people looking at your profile that you do what you say you do. And manage your profile settings as well. This can be a relatively involved process, but I would say it's definitely worthwhile just getting onto your personal settings on LinkedIn and just changing some settings so that it works for you. As far as I'm concerned, in my settings, I don't let anybody see who my connections are on my LinkedIn profile unless they are somebody who's endorsed me or somebody who's given me a recommendation. That's because I don't want people getting on there from recruitment agencies or whatever else and sort of spamming some of my contacts. Basically. So just be careful about things like that. Posting on LinkedIn, we've heard it from Tim already. The value of social media in terms of promoting what you're doing at your stands, at events that you're at. LinkedIn is a great means of doing this. Please don't be afraid to get some posts up there. Just make sure the content that you're linking to on there is relevant to your area of professional expertise. Although that said, you can get good ideas about working practice, about leadership from many sources. Use the homepage on your LinkedIn feed. That just will show you what people in your network have been doing. Comment on what people have been up to. If you like something, say so, and maybe share it with the rest of your network. As I say, it's a professional network. all for professionals, always, speak in a tone that you would be speaking with at a business meeting, and you won't go far wrong. Try and make sure you communicate on a regular basis, as we've said, and just get engaged, get involved, and you'll find that you will quickly get people noticing you and what you're doing. And we're on up to Manchester in June. Definitely use LinkedIn to post about what you're going to be doing at Manchester and why. There's some great stuff you could be doing there. Okay. So joining groups. This is a great way of building your reputation. If you can get involved in groups that are relevant to you, there are plenty on housing you can join, then do so. One thing that's quite handy is you can join up to 50 groups. Sounds maybe slightly bonkers, but the more groups you're in, the greater your reach is. You're then able to directly message people who are in the same group as you, even if they're not actually a connection. That's quite a useful feature to bear in mind, and just participate in groups really. Pick some of the ones that, if you do join 50, I wouldn't expect you're going to be participating in all of those, but there'll probably be 2 or 3 of that you really want to focus on and raise your profile. There is a LinkedIn group for CIH Housing 2015. It's called CIH Housing. If you search for it in the search bar and use the groups filter on the left-hand side, you'll find it. It's just been launched, so there aren't loads of members in there yet, but please do join. We're going to use that quite a lot to promoting the event. So, post about what you're doing, see who else is going, what they're interested in, and just use it really. Making the most of your network. Once somebody accepts your invitation to connect, follow it up. Don't just leave it. Get back to them, say, thank you for connecting with me, it'd be great to catch up on such and such. When we're next in the same town or whatever it is. Don't connect everybody who asks you to. Sounds obvious, but you've got to be selective. Always ask yourself if somebody's going to be somebody who can help you or your business, and if they're not, you've got to be ruthless and say probably it's not worth it. Also, unless your old mate from school is in your sector or just happens to be Bill Gates or David Cameron, it's probably not worthwhile connecting with them either, unfortunately. There's other social media for that sort of stuff. The search function is very useful in terms of making the most of your network. It used to be better, I have to say, because there were more filters available around seniority and function, but these are now only available to premium account holders. That said, I have a basic account at LinkedIn. I still find it very useful. It lets me just do my research on who I'm going to be meeting, or just kind of type businesses with which I might want to try to engage. In terms of tips for Manchester, like I say, think about who you want to try to do business with before you go there. Do some research on that organisation, and don't be anonymous either. Some people have asked me previously. I've done other sessions like this. Should we be, make ourselves anonymous when we're browsing other companies? I would say definitely not. Why would you want to hide the fact you're interested in working with the company? They want to check you out too, and hopefully they'll like what they see of you. I've done a very brief bit of research before this in terms of places for people. I have good 6 first-level connections in places for people, including Tim, but I've got 362 second-level connections. So I've got to connect with those people, but I've got a huge, already just from that, I've got a huge potential network with which I could be engaging with places for people more if I wanted to do that. And use your research to arrange meetings and try to make sure you do that. Okay, I'm just conscious of time. You can look at these slides later, but this just gives you a sense of what are some popular aspects of LinkedIn functions people find useful. I've talked through some that I find useful just now. Please make sure you read through your company's social media policy. It sounds a bit like a chore, but most businesses now are very supportive of the use of social media to grow their business, grow the firm, and build some guidelines to make sure that you don't inadvertently get it wrong when you're there. So I would definitely recommend doing that. I've just put on here 10 tips for success in LinkedIn. much of the stuff I've just talked through now. Again, if there's questions on that, we can pick them up shortly. And yeah, the next steps, just set yourself some goals. Don't try and go crazy. Just set some small targets. See how you get on. But certainly, I would say that LinkedIn has been very beneficial for me, and hopefully it can be for you too. Okay, thank you very much. Now we've got a few minutes for questions. There's obviously quite a few have come through, which is great. One of the things I wanted to pick up on directly, actually, was a question that came through from Tim Goodman. This is one for you, Tim, and Vicky, perhaps. Just asking about, to have a great stand, you need to have a big budget to do that. Tim, I don't know if you want to pick that up.
Sorry, yeah, I'll pick that up. Yeah, I have responded to Tim on the Q&As, but I think, I think every budget works, and in a previous role with another housing provider, I had a much smaller budget to exhibit at the CIH, and we still did something that works for us at that organisation. So I think it's about trying to be creative, doing something that will stand out from the crowd, because I think that there is so much happening on there. So I think try and think a little differently. If you're familiar with the event, then try and stand apart from others, and also about the planning. Try and raise awareness, make sure people know you're there, and try and find ways to get them to your stand and engage them when they are there. And I think if you can do that, then you'll have a successful event, whether you spend £5,000 or £50,000.
Can I just ask, actually, Tim, I mean, I think you mentioned that you had other outside speakers coming onto your stand. I think you mentioned you had a comedian coming on as well. And how much of a risk did you take when you were thinking about how to stand out? How far did you push things?
Well, I think part of our reason for being there last year was that we've evolved quite a lot as a group over the last few years, and now have a kind of wider group structure and capabilities. One of which was Places for People Leisure, joining the group a couple of years ago, and now being able to offer and manage leisure centres as part of our kind of wider placemaking agenda. So there we use some of our staff from that part of the business to deliver Zumba classes and some aerobics classes as a bit of a kind of morning, try and add a bit of energy to the event, and that certainly worked in just visually attracting people to the stand. Also, the comedian is a guy, kind of actor and comedian, starred in Alan Partridge, so he was a bit of a draw to get him, and he's well known in the world of Twitter. He's quite a prolific tweeter. So he came along to the stand, but he actually presents some of our e-learning solutions. So he was actually doing a presentation that was relevant to that, because he's kind of the face of our e-learning products that we sell to other housing providers. So it was linked into that, so it was fairly risk-free in that sense.
Okay, well, that's great. Sarah, you wanted to come in on that too, I think.
I just, from an event director's perspective, on one of the reasons exhibitors don't come back, and when we really listen to people about negative and positive feedback post-event, is often that they just haven't planned for it. Every single thing that Vicky and Tim did in advance, in terms of the exhibitor pack, in terms of planning what they were going to do with their stand, shouldn't matter what budget you have. It will only matter to the scale that you actually deliver at Manchester. The fact that Vicky was starting in January, that's what you need to do. The website's live now. We're 4 times ahead of where the delegate numbers are normally being at this stage. It's fairly small fry at this moment, so it's not massive yet, but they're engaging with our website now. Get your details up there. Get it on your sign-off. Send your visitor invites out. All of those things can be done. Let people know that you're going to be there. Anything that we can do to help, things like photographers and things like that, we have a photographer on site. If you want some photos being done of your stand, we'll happily send you all of the stock photos over that we do of the event. Anything we can do to help, but plan your time there and ask us any questions, because we'll know the answer and we'll be able to help, and we'll also know a few shortcuts for you too.
Great, and I'm just wondering, we've got a question come through from Ray Watson at CPAC about just how how exhibitors can get involved in some of the other new elements that we've got happening at the event this year. We've got the Fringe, we've got the Health and Social Care and Housing, and the Delegates of the Future as well. So any kind of tips there or pointers there?
The team that are heading this up are Denise Osborne and Tim Smith. Different ways for different things. So I'll just quickly talk about the different ways. The Fringe, what we're trying to do with the Fringe is not be prescriptive. The conference programme talks at you for 3 days with a few Q&A sessions after. What we're trying to do with the Fringe is almost reverse that. So you talk to us, you talk to the sector, you challenge, you provoke, you engage. So what Denise is doing right now is she's collecting lots of ideas. The engagement so far, and we haven't really even launched it yet, has been phenomenal. The excitement around it is great. So any ideas that you have, feel free to email me, or alternatively, Denise Osborne's email details will be on our website, CIHhousing.com. So just let us know how you want to be involved. The Health and Housing and Social Care Conference, we are focusing on solutions. The reason for health, housing and social care to be speaking to more is in the national press at the moment. We don't need to explain the reasons why we should all be working closer together. So we are focusing on solutions. So if you've got any best practice or case studies that you think will be relevant for that, the colleague of mine that's dealing with that is Tim Smith. His details will also be on CIHhousing.com. And the Delegate of the Future, if you're a manager that work in housing, or if you know some managers that do work for either a registered provider, local authority, charity, etc., let them know about it. As long as they're management level or the equivalent in a local authority, they can come free of charge on the Thursday, and we'd be delighted to have them. We have about 1/10 of the people already signed up for that. It's very early days. Most of our delegates sign up after about April time, so just let us know who it could be, and we'd be delighted to have them at Manchester this year.
That's great. One last thing, actually, Martin, I just wanted to put a question to you, actually. Just have you got any examples of stories that have come from exhibitors that have featured in Inside Housing that you can maybe talk about with anybody? I don't know if there's things like stands or blogs, that sort of stuff. Any scoops maybe?
Yes, I'm sure there are some scoops. There's certainly plenty of content we've had from exhibitors over the years. I mean, I think looking back, it tends to be the people who planned it in advance that have had if you like, the best hit rate. I mean, I think if you look back, I might be wrong, but I think for the last 2 years there's been one consultant who's been particularly successful in terms of communicating what he's up to at Manchester, because he's been in touch in advance. He's looked at the topics, pitched perhaps around construction and development, had comment pieces in the magazine and online, and very much directed people to him and what he's been doing at the conference. And that's just because he's taken a bit of time, thought about who he wants to reach and how he's going to do it. I'll name no names so people can go and have a look and see if they can work out who it was. I mean, I think Place for People is a great example of how it works well too. I mean, they got plenty of coverage in the daily editions, and again, that was because they were very, very clear about what was going to be happening and when, and let us know in advance. I mean, quite often at Manchester, and there's a bit of a challenge here as well, quite often people will come up and say, well, why didn't you cover this? And in actual fact, if you're telling us about it on the Tuesday or Wednesday, half an hour in advance of somebody coming and visiting your stand, again, the reporters are coming in and out of some of the sessions at Manchester, they're meeting contacts, they set things up in advance. There's often not huge amounts of space in the schedule at that point to be kind of reactive. So really be letting us know in advance what's happening. Like I say, Place for People last year, I mean, they definitely really stand out. I'm not just saying that because they're here, because the stand was very memorable, but again, they had events and they let us know who was going to be there, when they were going to be there, what they were likely to be saying, and that meant we could plan editorial coverage around that. So that's the kind of thing that really works well for us.
Great, okay, Martin, thank you very much. Okay, I'm just conscious of time. We've run out of it, in fact, on this, so thank you to the panel for their thoughts today, and thank you all very much for attending. Okay, webinar's now finished. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.